Yeah, welcome everyone. Today I am speaking to Hasan Kubba, co-author of The Unfair Advantage. Good to have you today, Hasan.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited for this.
So I'm going to jump straight into kind of the I guess, essential idea of this book. So the definition that you give for an unfair advantage is an unfair advantage is a condition, asset, or circumstance that puts you in a favorable business position. Now, like looking at that, a lot of people would probably think, okay, this is money and education. You know, some people just are born with lots of money, they go to a great school, and that just sets them up for success in life. But I think a big part of the book is actually that advantages go beyond just money and education, right?
100%, yeah. Is that what you went into the book thinking? Like money and education and other things? Is that kind of
luck, I'd say, like that idea of like typically some people that maybe don't have money or education, just one event in their life, just like people that go viral, like famous for certain things. Like a viral video can make somebody from like a middle income household or somebody who's like already underprivileged just get like billions of views or hundreds of millions of views, and then all of a sudden they are like, they get to travel to Western countries and do interviews and all those things, and all of a sudden like their life takes a completely different trajectory. So you think that those are the only kind of like three things, and going into it, you learn there's more, and in fact there's actually a framework. So maybe you can tell me about the Miles framework.
Happy to. So so we were thinking about what makes people successful. It's like a classic question in like self-development sort of literature. It's like, okay, what's the difference that makes a difference? And one thing that Ash and I, my co-author Ash Ali, and I were thinking about is when we had all these startup founders come and pitch us, a bit like Dragon's Den or Shark Tank or these kind of shows, we would notice that some of them we just have the feeling, okay, they're going to be good, or they're going to be able to raise funding, not like necessarily just from us, but like in general, they're going to succeed. And others who like, they're going to struggle. And we're thinking, okay, but what is that thing? What is the difference that makes a difference? And we kind of considered it to be like, see, because I grew up reading a lot of self-help books and motivational speakers, and usually what they teach is just like work super hard, you gotta hustle hard. You have like people saying like, if you don't want to succeed as badly as you want to breathe, then you're never going to be a success. And it's all about like digging deep and waking up at 4 a.m. and like pulling your socks up and meditating and working crazy hours and forgetting to eat. And we thought, no, it's just clearly not just that. There are a lot of people who are hardworking and don't have success. So the difference that makes a difference is what we call unfair advantages. Now, unfair advantages aren't necessarily unethical or anything illegal. It's just that it's unfair in that not everybody starts off from the same starting line. Some people have head starts. So an unfair advantage is like a head start in a race, if you think of it that way. So there are lots of different categories of unfair advantages. As you said, we came up with this concept, this framework called the Miles framework. And it's a way to audit your own or somebody else's, I guess. Like you wouldn't know them that well, but just from what you can see from someone else's unfair advantages. So you could kind of have a look at it. So it's Miles is an acronym, and it stands for money, intelligence and insight, location and luck, which is right place, right time. Then you have E for education and expertise, and S is for status. Status is arguably probably the most powerful one out of all of those, I would say. And then you have all of this on a foundation of mindset, because if you don't have the right mindset, then you'll get nowhere, no matter if you have all the unfair advantages in the world. So that's kind of the starting point, and those are the different categories. I guess we can kind of run through each one and kind of break it down a little bit.
I think an interesting one that comes up is, well, just somebody who hears that kind of framework at the start might think that all of these actually is luck underpinning it all. So to have money, you're born into a wealthy family. To have education, you may be born into a wealthy family. To have luck, well, that's luck. And then status can also be because you like were born in the right country or like born to a certain family. All these things, but actually, and this is what you get when you read the book, you realize that sometimes unfair advantages can be cultivated. So you deciding, almost not maybe arbitrarily or maybe just because of your own insight or whatever, to like develop a certain skill as it's picking up at the right time can become an unfair advantage. So becoming a self-taught programmer in the 90s would have put you in one of the few who can take advantage of the dot-com crash. Whereas now, like self-taught developers, almost it's just expected that you can code in many industries, and like you're competing with so many, probably millions of developers worldwide. Whereas back then, like they were, I can't say exact numbers, but definitely a select few. And to be the person, one of the few people in like a certain city to have that, like really that skill. So you could have come from any background, but if you had chosen to read books on that skill or take a course or whatever at that time, that's an unfair advantage.
Absolutely. And there's always these opportunities coming up. Like right now, I don't know, what's the latest thing right now that's kind of going to grow? It's hard to tell. But let's say if you go back, or even till now, like at the end of the day, these opportunities are still there. Like if you learn to code, you're going to be in a much better position. Like the demand for coders is much higher than the number of coders there are in the world, or programmers.
Yeah.
The same with like cybersecurity, like experts. Like if you have, like the demand for it is so much higher than how many people actually have the skills for it. You can even have things which are less techy and more kind of just media savvy or marketing side or growth side, which is like, let's say a TikTok growth expert. Like that's something that's new, because TikTok is relatively new as a platform, and like how does it work and what kind of content works on it? It's still a relatively new thing. It's been around just a couple of years now. So there's always these opportunities, and one of the things that we do talk about in the book when it comes to location and luck, in that context, luck is sort of timing, and it's like you can time these big waves of technology and trends, and you can figure stuff out. And what you said about luck underpinning all of it, it does. And that's what, if you can break down the book into one thing, and we do at the beginning, we say, look, you can think of success. Here are two kind of extreme examples of ways or models of looking at success. One way to look at it is it's purely earned, and it's based on hard work and like skill, and like it's purely based on that, and it's a completely fair, just, meritocratic system. And the other way of looking at it is like it's all completely luck, it's all random and fate and destiny, and that's it.
But we can't really think that way, right? Like luck is such a big factor, but you have to make decisions based on that. Like some people, like you could win the lotto and then completely squander that money, or you could win the lotto and not even drive to go and collect your money, or like whatever, and then you don't profit from that. So you have to actually do stuff with that. Like, I think an important thing is that like nothing. Okay, so there maybe are some cases where people just completely get to like benefit from luck, but some people actually have to act with it, and some people have to recognize that something has been a lucky break for them. So I'm trying to think of another example now about like how it's actually also just hard work, maybe leveraging other factors, but like, so being a YouTuber in kind of late 2000s, like 2009, 2010 was a good time to get into it, because you were one of the few on the platform, you didn't have much competition, you could like steadily grow your base, but you didn't just, because you were one of the 5 people on the platform, get millions of users straight away, because there were no users. So it's people that stuck out from there, that over 10 years. And you look at them now and you think, wow, like 20 million subscribers, like they must be making so much passive money from ad revenue. But like there's a point when they were doing it as a hobby maybe, and not like, no one was seeing it as like something lucky or like something lucrative, but they just stuck through with it.
Exactly. And if anything, that could be too early to get into it, because it's like there's no clear path for monetization. There's no like, nobody could see the future back in 2009 and be like, this is going to be a big thing, and they're going to come out with this partner program where you can make a cut of the revenue. And at that stage, it could have been like YouTube could have been overtaken by another video sharing platform. Who knows? So it's sometimes I think to myself, because I'm getting into YouTube now, so sometimes I think to myself, if only I'd gone into it back in 2011, 2012 when I'd considered to get into it. But if I'm honest with myself, would I have stuck with it? Like if I had done it in 2012, would I have continued doing it consistently? Would I have been able to do that? Probably not, because I didn't have a good reason to. Some of the people that got into YouTube early on, they were either like really hobbyists about video, or like they had they wanted to promote a business, not even from way back then, but like, let's say one of my friends he's now a friend of mine, Ali Abdal, who's a YouTuber.
I was going to bring him up in a minute. So it's what a coincidence, but I do know you two are getting closer, so that's why I thought I'd bring him into it, but I'll get to it in a sec.
And I asked him if you didn't have, so he had this medical prep business where it was like you can teach people how to prepare to get into medical school and stuff. I was like to him, if you didn't have that, do you think you would have started YouTube? Because his initial goal was just to create some content to get some more clients for his, business. And he's like, yeah, probably not. Like, so it's like, also he had a specific why. It wasn't a complete just the hobbyists sharing their lives. And then the hobbyists sharing their lives, most of them go nowhere because it's just a lifestyle thing. There's no niche. There's no specific strategy. It's just like, yep, I'm just going to do this. And they kind of either luck into some success because they're funny or entertaining or they're great. But 99.99% just go nowhere with it,
Yeah, that's the thing. So like people might look at YouTube and say, the time has passed to be big in it, because if you weren't there in the early days, you can't go big now. But like Ali Abdul does a great breakdown of how essentially the average YouTuber has to probably make like 3,000 or something videos before they get their first million subscribers. And if you think about that, that is actually 10 years of posting every day to get a million subscribers. But people like him, right? I think he's like 10x that, in the sense that he's done like maybe between 150 and 300 videos and it's gotten to a million subscribers. And maybe there are some factors underpinning that. Maybe his ability to make content about his niche or about productivity was kind of driven by some unfair advantages. But the point is, like, he's still putting that work every single day to do that. And at the beginning, it was very slow going. And likewise,
I was just
some people just stumble across something.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, like, this is what I was leading towards when I talked about the book, is either like extreme, like the two extreme mindsets or models of success is it's all hard work. And the other one is, oh, it's all luck. And the reality is squarely in the middle. It's absolutely not all just hard work. And it's absolutely not all just luck. It's in the middle. But which mindset, and this is what we touched on in the book, which mindset is going to serve you? If you use the lens of looking about luck in the world, is that going to help you to be motivated to work? Or are you just going to be like, oh, I hope I get lucky at one point? And then the mindset about hard work, that's actually going to empower you to work hard and do it. But then the luck mindset can help you to not compare yourself. The unfair advantage model can help you it can help your mental health, in the sense of, like, if you compare yourself to super successes, because that is this very select sample size, you're not looking in the graveyard of failures. You've got survivorship bias going on. And you're looking at like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and like these huge success stories, and you're saying, oh, why can't I do that? Why can't I become like a self-made billionaire? It's like, come on. You have to accept that they had a lot of luck involved, and that's why we start with the story of Evan Spiegel, Snapchat. Yeah,
it's a great one. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think we do live in a society where we probably idolize billionaires and not necessarily idolize millionaires, because often billionaires and millionaires have had a very similar trajectory. They've both kind of like capitalized on something. There's some luck involved. They both worked hard, but sometimes luck, or maybe a potent combination of unfair advantages, can just really like 10x that, 100x that, and that's what makes you a billionaire. So you get some people that are very hardworking, that work similar hours to someone like Musk, who've also kind of like, done something, but they're a millionaire, and we should still celebrate that. They've still done well. They still differentiate themselves from 99.9% of people. That's the thing. So I think this is another thing you touch on. You talk about, we need to have a kind of growth mindset, right? That mindset underpinning Miles, right? But there are some traps to the growth mindset, because when you look at someone like Elon Musk, who says, like, my success in the 2000s was because I was doing 120-hour work weeks or whatever. Like, we believe then that actually, we must just work harder, and we mustn't put any thought into like, is this the right thing to be putting our efforts in? Are we even like utilizing our talents or our kind of maybe some of our innate strengths or whatever? And then we just kind of have this massive in the sky kind of view of things, and might just be driving ourselves to an early grave or burnout or all these things. So you actually advocate for a reality growth mindset in the book, and maybe you can tell me a little bit about that one.
Yeah, so I believe it was Carol Dweck who talks about the growth mindset. Am I right there? I think it was her. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Carol
I can
Dweck.
quickly go do a little page in the...
I think it was Carol Dweck, and she taught this concept. I think it's in her book called Mindset, and this concept of a growth mindset. And if we're to summarize, what does having a growth mindset mean? If you can't do something, like, for example, I've got this right here. I can't do a Rubik's Cube. I recently got this and I thought I'd play around with it a little bit. I can't do a Rubik's Cube. Somebody with a fixed mindset would say, I just can't do Rubik's Cubes. It's just something I can't do. And she says the magic of that is just adding in one little 3-letter word, which is yet. So I can't do a Rubik's Cube yet. That's a growth mindset. A growth mindset means you believe you can learn something. You can grow to be able to fit into any role. I'm not an entrepreneur yet. I'm not a millionaire yet. I'm not.
Yeah, and that's where the concern comes, right? Where people started extrapolating that to, I'm not a billionaire yet. I'm not the first person on, and there's some things that are outright impossible. Like I'm not the first person on the, you can't say I'm not the first person on the moon yet, because that's already happened. But then similarly, people already, I'm not, I'll be the first, I haven't been the first person on Mars yet. Like, yeah, so it can be dangerous then, because the delta between where we are now and where we want to grow to, it becomes very, very wide. Whereas with the growth mindset, you kind of want to look at things that are somewhere like down the line, like available to you, where you need to kind of believe that you can get there, versus just saying, no, I'll never get there. So you have to kind of ground it to some extent. So it's yet with a bit of a caveat.
Yeah. So most of us do, right? We naturally like don't think, oh, I'm going to be the next Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm just not there yet. And it's like, really, like, did you start training when you were like 5 years old? did you have that raw talent? Or, do you know what I mean? So it's like, most of us know, like, without thinking. It's the same with the unfair advantage mindset. We all kind of, well, the feedback we get is like, yes, this is what I was thinking, but I just didn't have the words for it. And I didn't think about it so deeply, but like, yeah, I knew unfair advantages exist. I never thought of it in those terms though. So when you can like put words to something which people already know, it's the same with the reality growth mindset. It's like, yeah, well, are you going to win the Nobel Prize for physics? I mean, I'm not gonna, no matter how much I try, because at the end of the day, there is such a thing as talent. And this is one thing that I wanted to take a stand on in the book, because lately a lot of these like self-help books are like, yes, talent is overrated. It's all about hard work. And it's like, yeah, you need both. But like, hard work wins when talent doesn't work hard, like that kind of thing. Like, but if you have both, that's like rocket fuel. Like you kind of, it's important to realize that there are limits. There are physical limits to things. If you're 5 foot tall, I don't think, or even me being 5'11", almost 6 foot, that's not tall enough to be in the NBA. And trust me,
definitely not going to become a figure skater.
Yeah.
Even if tomorrow, like even if I watch a really good movie and I'm like, I want to be a figure skater now, world class at the Olympics, I can't just say I'm not an Olympic figure skater yet.
Yeah, exactly. So it's and we all know that, right? Like this isn't blowing anybody's mind right now. So the point is,
but the kind of mindset of I could start figure skating as a hobby. I can't. I'd probably slip on ice right now, but maybe in a few months' time, I can be doing it like on a weekend. That's the mindset a lot of us need to have.
Exactly. And that's key. So look, the most important thing is people not to have a fixed mindset. That's key. So it's important to have a growth mindset. Now, the only additional thing there is to have it rooted in some reality. And that's the idea of the Unfair Advantage book. It's like a book which actually talks about things which in the wrong context can be sort of demotivational, but they're not demotivational. It's just reality. We're just trying to bring the brutal, hard, honest truth that just because you're gonna like work so hard, that doesn't mean you're gonna be the next Jay-Z or the next Beyonce. Like these are things not under our control. What we have to accept is that we don't have control over every aspect of life. And that's it. We could do what we can, and the rest is up to luck. It's up to fate. It's up to whatever. So this is what we try. And I think I grew up with too much of the you can do it if you believe it mindset. That can be toxic to an extent, because then you're just comparing yourself, just as we already said, to the people who are like outliers, who are extremely successful at stuff. Then you have to realize that you can't compare yourself to them because you don't have the same starting point.
Sometimes you look at people that, because I think for every example of somebody who like self-made billionaire before 25, there are some examples of people that in their 30s, their 40s, like were able to make an extraordinary success of themselves. So I feel like there's always some kind of, we can always rationalize like that massive, like we can be we can be an outlier. It just hasn't happened to us yet. That lucky moment, that lucky break, that novel idea. But again, there's dreaming, and there's also maybe putting yourself in a position where you're bound to actually either be luckier or be able to better take advantage of luck. So like you can just by working and saving money be in a position where you've got enough savings to have runway for any idea that comes through. And then if luck comes by you can actually act on it and hire some people to work on that idea with you. But if you don't put that thing in, you just think one day all the stars will align for me, then that idea will come to you, but you'll be like, I've got,
exactly
1 month worth of savings in my bank account. I really can't act on this idea. And then you blame it on, oh, well, there was probably some really wealthy person who got it. They had such an unfair advantage.
Yeah. And this is the thing. It's this book. So we spoke a little bit about the Miles framework. Well, the point is, you might think to yourself, watching this or reading the book, you might start off by thinking, well, I don't have unfair advantages. I'm not super privileged. I didn't, wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I didn't grow up being, for example, Kylie Jenner, who was like touted as this. I cover this in my TED talk, where she's like touted as the youngest self-made billionaire in the world. And it's like, really, Forbes self-made?
Yeah.
Kylie Jenner is self-made. I mean, she grew up with the Kardashians, and she grew up on a TV show where she was being paid $500,000 an episode. Yeah. And she has a whole team of managers and advisors and all these people to seek advice from. So when she launched her own business, you can't say she's self-made. But can we learn things from her? Did she work hard? Yeah, as well. That's true too. Yeah. It's true on both sides. And it's the same with all these success stories. Like, there are things we can learn from.
I think my favorite part is that at the end of each chapter, you essentially outline the downsides, the possible downsides, or the double-edged nature of some of these advantages. Yeah. So actually, what's seen as a disadvantage can be an advantage. So yes, money might put you in a position to act on certain ideas, but having lots of money might make you less hungry to be entrepreneurial, right? Now, then you still maybe need some other advantages to boost you up, to actually allow you to basically feed your ambition and give you the fuel and maybe make a success in other means. But it is quite empowering, like even with status. So status, you said, is probably the most, in your mind, one of the most important unfair advantages. But at the same time, having no status, being an outsider, can give you fresh perspective. So actually insight, which is another unfair advantage, could actually come from a lack of status. So there are ways to look at it where you can almost always find something you could leverage, but actually taking a step back and realizing, being almost clinical with yourself could be the actual step you've been waiting for, to then take the hard work you're capable of and direct it in a worthwhile way.
And you can make your own luck. This is something that we haven't touched on. The more things you try, the more things you put out there, the more you've got the chance. Like sitting at home doing nothing, publishing nothing, not putting out content, not tweeting, not creating YouTube videos as an example, or let's say not trying to create products, not trying to sell products, not trying to undertake or try out new ideas. How can you get lucky? You're not rolling the dice. You can't roll a 6 if you're not rolling the dice in the first place.
And that's the thing.
Here's what matters. If you're watching this now, then you have unfair advantages. If you're able to read the book or listen to the book on like an audio book, you have unfair advantages. And even the sort of negative things, the things that you think are going against you, they can be positive. And you can read the book to learn more about that, about how apparent disadvantages can be big advantages. And we have loads of case studies in there of people with so many disadvantages. And that's why we talk about the whole rags to riches and the whole the American dream is what we touch on a little bit early on in the book.
Sure, rags to riches is a bit less likely than self-made from already a good starting point, but the point of it is possible, and hopefully over time the playing field can get leveled, because even somebody that's in a kind of very dire straits in an impoverished country or region, they have that, let's say, that insight, right? They actually see problems that a lot of the world doesn't get to see on a daily basis. Now they just maybe having insight on its own is one of the hard unfair advantages to make something out of. But the moment luck gives them kind of basically one up in one other realm, they can actually really launch somewhere.
Yeah, so Jonah, the book is called The Unfair Advantage, How You Already Have What It Takes to Succeed. Now, at first, for that tagline, I thought, oh, well, is that trying to say that everybody could succeed? Well, yeah, everybody can succeed, but it depends on your definition of success. We can't all be Oprah Winfrey, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, etc. But we can be our own version of success. We have to define success for ourselves. We have to figure out how to take pleasure in the journey and not the destination, because we can't control the destination. We can't control how life unfolds, but we can influence it. So we do what we can to influence it. We enjoy the journey, and we figure out what is it that drives us, what is our why, and then try and leverage our strengths and our circumstances. The unique thing about the Unfair Advantage book is that there are no other, as far as I'm concerned, I've never read or seen any other business book which talks about your circumstances. They just talk about, yeah, you have these strengths, you're good at this skill, you're good at that skill. Cool. And that's good. You should double down on those strengths as well. But you should also think about your circumstances. Who do you know? How do you come across? People don't talk about this stuff because it's kind of taboo. Oh yeah, people are going to judge you based on your looks. People are going to judge you based on the color of your skin, based on your accent, based on how you dress, based on who your friends are, based on how you come across. These are things that just aren't talked about. But in the early stages of a business, it has an effect. It has a big effect. Like the startup founders we would talk to, they didn't have a product yet, they didn't have a business yet, they had an idea and they were getting started. So you got no traction to judge them on, you got no revenue numbers to judge them on, but you can judge them based on the team. Like a lot of investors, nearly all investors, I would say, or all of them, would judge an investment based on, they say like, bet on the jockey, not the horse. The horse, if in this case, the horse is the idea, the business idea or the business model. But the jockey is the founding team, the entrepreneurs behind it, whether it's you by yourself or whether it's you have co-founders, and we really recommend in the book trying to have co-founders and business partners because
that's that other idea of the kind of unfair advantage of a team is this kind of somewhat like the sum of them. I mean, I've been thinking about that a bit because two people that have lots of money, yes, there's probably like having more money will be beneficial to the team, but maybe two people with money isn't as good as one person with money, one person with like a really good insight. So I think there's some very potent combinations, and the only way to make sure that you've kind of got it all is to actually look for people that route you out and add them on and trust in others, and you can kind of get very far with that.
Yeah. Tell me, what was your biggest insight reading the book? What was for you like stood out?
Oh, the questions have directed to me. So not allowed. I've got so many questions left for you.
We don't have much time left. No, fair enough. Go ahead.
I'll answer it at the end, but I would like to ask some very important questions. Okay, so I guess something that I was going to ask was about this idea of when the theory started to emerge, and that probably came from all the pictures you saw. So would you sit at the end of the day and say, geez, what a busy day. Some of those were really good. Really want to invest in, and then maybe did you start seeing that some that maybe had like less developed ideas, but the people themselves were really interesting, unique, you just had a kind of more attraction towards, you gravitated towards those teams?
Yeah, it's essentially like we were thinking, why do the ones who you could tell that they were going to lead to success, and then they often did, often, not always, why did they always fit a certain mold? Why do they seem like, and researching this a bit more and thinking about it a little bit more, we realized that actually investors, because here's how angel investing works. You don't have one angel investor. You usually have to raise from a few to be able to have your first funding for a startup company, right? And it's like, one of the things that you think about as an investor is, are they going to be able to raise funding from other people as well? Like, it's not enough just to get from us. So, and that is often like, people judge based on like pattern recognition, and this is bad. So people will often, so one of the classic things, and we talk about that with Melanie Perkins, the founder of Canva's case study at the end of the book, is like when they, in Silicon Valley, for instance, which is where a lot of these tech startups happen, and that's the big global hub for it. What they were investing in is people who looked like basically Mark Zuckerberg. Mm-hmm. They were like 20-something, early 20s, wearing a hoodie and looking nerdy, dropping out of like top universities like Harvard or Stanford or MIT, and like not really good social skills, white, like, just like him. And so if they see like somebody like Melanie Perkins, who's like kind of like Australian, flying over from Australia trying to raise funding, a woman who is like basically doesn't fit all those molds, they're like, this is a risk, like this might not work, So it was like, okay, these are unfair advantages, and that's just one basic one, and then we cover all the different other unfair advantages in the book. And we started to think about that, and we started thinking, that's so unfair. Like, why is it like that? Why are we seeing the pitches that are coming from the less represented, the underrepresented founders. Why were their pitches, like their ideas can be good, but they actually, sometimes it's like you have less faith in them. They had less of a network. They didn't, here's a good example I'll give you. Oftentimes they have like a really good idea, but they don't have a technical co-founder. They're not coders themselves, and they don't have a technical co-founder. And they just have no idea where to find one. They have no idea how to start, or even like they have less of the business knowledge in the background. And one of the unfair advantages that you can have is just to know that these opportunities exist and how to approach it and how to pitch and how to come up with an idea and how to network and how to find other people. Like if you go to a top university, you can find people there. You can go to entrepreneurial societies and be involved in all of that. If you don't have that opportunity, then you don't have, and then you're already at a huge disadvantage.
Yeah.
So all this to say, like, we just started seeing people having unfair advantages and thinking, what is that? What is that X factor that makes them successful? And this is when we came up with the concept.
Very cool.
And we started breaking them down. Yeah.
Yeah, and then eventually said, let's write a book. And there's a whole, I'm sure, story around like the mechanics of, without having a kind of writing background, going into writing a book and getting it published and all those things. But I've realized, unfortunately, I won't have time for those today because I've got other things I want to quickly draw you about. So, okay, 2 questions, and then I'm going to pitch some ideas to you. And those you can just give me like your initial yes, no responses to. Okay, so the first question is just, has this kind of thinking spilled over into your coaching? So do you coach people based on unfair advantages now?
Yeah. So I've gone into coaching recently, business coaching. I'm actually really enjoying it. I used to kind of not understand the value of coaching as much because we were doing mentorship, we were doing advice for startup founders and just entrepreneurs in general, or people who want to start a side business or want to build their own personal brand and kind of teach things. So I'm particularly coaching like educational creators. So there's quite a few YouTubers in there. There's people who write blogs and articles or they're thinking of doing that and they want to do a business around that. So they have some kind of expertise. And so I thought, no, I'm a consultant. I actually know about business. So why should I be a coach? I should be a consultant because coaches kind of ask you questions. Consultants give you answers. And that was the kind of model I had in my head. But I see the value of coaching now because information is available. Like you can find information everywhere. There's actually information overload. But how can you actually help people is give them clarity and give them accountability. And this is how like I'm seeing the value that I'm adding. Like who we mentioned earlier, Ali Abdal, he's one of my coaching clients. And
really?
I helped him launch.
That's fantastic. What a cool client.
Yeah, I helped him launch his YouTube Academy and now helping with like a systemizing of his business. And also he's working on a book himself. But coaching is just so fun and so rewarding. Do we use the unfair advantage? Absolutely, we do. One of the earliest things is like, what are your unfair advantages? Let's double down on those. Okay, what is your why? What are you trying to figure out here? What kind of problem are you trying to solve?
Because in information overload, there's also opportunity overload. So unfair advantages help you direct your efforts. So it's again, you're not necessarily telling them this is how you should be living your life, but you can essentially limit the realm of options that they have to deal with based on which ones actually they're going to get further in. But you're not necessarily telling them at the end of the day. You help them kind of make an informed choice, and then you also give them a bit of motivation and a check-in and an accountability measure.
That's right. And it's just that clarity of like you say, everybody's looking at the next shiny thing. What about if I try this? What about if I try that? And it's like, okay, what is your goal here? What are you trying to achieve? What are your unfair advantages? Okay, it's a bit clearer now what kind of business you should do or what kind of project you should start. Or, it's usually people wanting to start a side business and then eventually do that full time, maybe create passive income streams, maybe create multiple revenue streams. And that is what I coach people on because I've been there, I've done that,
Yeah. The other question was, any plans for a next book or sequel to the Unfair Advantage?
Sequel. Yes, we have some ideas.
Oh, wait, and I should say, I mean, anyone who's watching, I didn't say, like, you guys just won Business Book of the Year 2020, which is fantastic news. You definitely need a sequel now. There's clearly demand.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was just a few days ago. We were shortlisted or nominated for the startup category for Business Book Awards 2021, and we won that
2021. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's based on the year that the award is held. So the book came out last year, the hardback beginning of 2020, the paperback in December 2020. But yeah, so we won the category, which we were over the moon for. And then there's like 12 other categories or 11. There's 12 categories.
They pull the category winners and then they put that into an overall like grand prize.
Yeah. And we won that, which was insane. And I've got the award somewhere in the house now. It's a big gold award and it's very validating. And it shows like the amount of work we put into developing our insight unfair advantage by giving talks and by mentoring startup founders and giving advice, and helped us hone the book into something that's become so valuable. And
there are too many puns that can be made of this, but essentially your insight in developing the unfair advantage was an unfair advantage, and that gave you a leg up on all the other books. That's why you won.
Yeah, it's all very meta. So it's all the work, like I said, like 4 years or whatever, 4.5 years working on a book. It's a long time. And so, yeah, that was really humbling and exciting and amazing to get that.
So are you kind of, what's the word, fermenting any new ideas for?
Yes, we have some ideas we're working on.
You don't need to tell me, it's fine, it's fine.
No, because we're still not 100% sure. It's very early days, but we have some things that we're working on. We have a few ideas. But first, the book is hopefully going to come out in the States, because what happened is it came out in the whole world except the US and Canada. You can still order the book, but it'll take some time to arrive, but to actually to get a publishing deal in the States as well, because even getting a publishing deal in the first place was a whole journey, and we could talk about that.
That's a good market to get into. That's going to plump up the pockets, because that's a massive market of very aspirational people who do consume business books, startup books, self-help books. Not that your books are self-help.
Excited to get the message out there, and especially in the country, which is the highest believer in almost in pure
American dream.
The American dream. But yeah, it's getting really good because we have a very balanced message. I would say we're not saying, oh, it's all privilege, it's all this, and not at all. It's actually a very empowering mindset, and it's a way of thinking of like, how can you have your own version of success? It's not there to make you a victim, and that's something we work so hard on, is how to make it not disempowering.
Okay, now onto my ideas, onto my big ones. Okay, these are just some fun ones I thought of based on unfair advantages, because I guess this is like it's a novel IP you've got now, and you've got a better name for yourself, and you've got, you know, the reward as well, which is like definitely going to boost things. So I'll go from kind of least to most wild. Okay, the least one was I actually think that it'd be quite cool to have like an unfair advantage newsletter or something. I don't know if you already do, where essentially you do case studies that break down like a certain person or certain founding team's success, and you do a bit of a deep dive into like there's kind of information available on them, and show practically like what they've done, and maybe in some cases even get them on to speak about themselves, because some people are quite self-aware and humble about like the successes they've had. I think that could be quite cool, because I've been following this newsletter called First 1000, which looks at a lot of like big startups and how they got their first 1,000 customers. It's always very humbling to see basically the hand-to-hand combat they engaged in just to get like 10 people to check out their shitty website. So I think it'll be so cool to see, because the book, like I love the case studies. I think you did great ones.
Did, so I worked on a project last year called Success Decoded, and I started off with Elon Musk, funnily enough, who's become so much more famous since the beginning of 2020.
You wouldn't think so. You wouldn't think that he could have gotten any more famous in the last year and a half.
I know. Well, especially in South Africa, I'm sure he's very famous there. But basically, he's so that project is just on hold right now. But it was a passion project of mine. It wasn't even a commercial thing. I was doing a really deep dive on Elon Musk's background story, and I wanted to do these deep dives on huge outlier successes, and then look at, okay, what were their unfair advantages? Number one. Number two, what can we learn from them as well? So it's like that, both sides of the story. So that was really fun, and I even did a podcast episode that I recorded about that. That project I want to bring back online, and I want to bring it to YouTube. What we're doing right now is we're hiring right now in our team, so we can have more capacity to create some more stuff, because I need the support on that. We've got Ash also helping me, but he's working on a startup at the same time.
And so do you think that your personal channel would evolve into that, rather than having like an unfair advantage channel? Do you think that like personal brand
I think so
is more important?
My YouTube account is going to be I'm a big believer in personal brand, so my YouTube is going to be my name. And we'll see if that has its own channel or whatever. I don't know. It might be.
Plus, you'd have different types of content as well, which is cool. Like, or under the holding company of Hasan. Second thing is, I see like with a lot of these kind of like different types of coaching, and a lot of these like personality quizzes, there are always these industries built around people that become like certified, you know, whatever. So I was thinking, have you ever considered like doing training for like unfair advantage coaching, and that becomes something that people can get certified as, and they can become a certified unfair advantage coach, and then they can go and like get basically worldwide get that, because you have to obviously grow it past yourself at some point if this is a very valuable framework for people to operate by.
Definitely. So that's something we're definitely thinking about doing. It's on the cards, but we don't like to rush into things. We like to develop something really valuable. So the first thing that we're working on is actually a scorecard quiz that can help you find your unfair advantages.
Like
so
an online quiz, that would be fun. Share on Facebook.
And then
This actually goes straight into my next idea, which is a crazy one. You should have unfair advantage merch. It's like, I've got money and I'm proud of it. I was born, I won the ovarian lottery. These are the odds of me having the advantages I had based on this. You should actually do that, like calculate the probability that somebody had that set of advantages. And then they can share that on Facebook with their friends, and they can get the cap. It's definitely vanity, but like I'm sure some people would do it like either out of pure, they just aren't self-aware enough.
I've got money and I'm proud of it.
Honestly, I think Evan Spiegel would definitely he'd definitely wear like all your merch. He'd be a brand ambassador for sure. And the final idea I had was actually like a co-founder app, like a kind of Tinder for co-founders, but based on rounding out in the miles. So essentially, like you do the quiz, you find out what you are, and then you basically say like, okay, I need between 1 and 3 people that are gonna basically have these 3 advantages I don't have, and then there'll be a matching system, and you can also review, maybe watch a video intro of them, or like look at their LinkedIn, blah blah blah. But like I think that because I've co-founder apps are like something that's coming up in lots of countries, but like what I've really discovered, and even myself and my friends and I are building something similar to like connect like student entrepreneurs to driven students. But what we realize is like, how do you actually get to the essence, especially when it's like people that don't necessarily have a specialty skill set, or they do, but like they're young. How do you get to the essence of a good match and like a good team? And even people that are best friends might be a terrible kind of founding team. So this is actually a good metric to go by. So I think there should be an unfair advantage dating app.
I'm in. This is like, man, this is exciting. There's a lot of opportunities here, and we'll see. We want to just like get the message out there, help empower people, help people not to compare themselves and feel depressed. It's a little bit like, there's all these news stories about like teenage girls in particular, but this applies to everyone. But I think in teenage girls in particular, they'll compare themselves to other people on Instagram and TikTok, and they'll be depressed. And reality is like, okay, well, you're looking at airbrushed and photoshopped and specially selected angles and lighting and all this stuff. And I think particularly for guys, we might do the same thing. Some for like how buff you are and how muscly you are. But I mean, a lot of people do it based on careers and business and money and like Forbes magazine, etc.
There's always a comparison. I mean, for anybody who's like studying computer science or business degree and they're in their early 20s and they're in some country they're not at a university that's not Stanford, Harvard, MIT, to look at those, to kind of look where you are and just feel like I've already missed the boat on being this successful tech founder, it can be really crushing. And then you have to find all sorts of like rationalizations, but you're also aware that you're rationalizing, and then maybe I'm speaking from experience here, and then it becomes a bit of an insecurity. But that's actually this leads.
You can't do like for like comparisons when you understand that each person has their own unique set of circumstances and their own unique set of unfair advantages, and you know what? Some are stronger than others, and that's okay. Life isn't fair, and that's one of the core concepts: is life isn't fair, and you just play the hand that you're dealt. Right, and this is all about understanding and leveraging your unfair advantages.
You can still turn a bad hand into a flush, right? But I think this actually goes well into my kind of insights, which you asked about. I've had some time to mull over it in between, and I think so. Before I get to kind of major insights, I also already must say I haven't talked about it anyway, but the kind of startup quick guide or startup starting guide or startup whatever guide, the final part, the third part of the book was also really useful because it feels like it's years and years of like knowledge and wisdom condensed into honestly a simple step-by-step process and checklists for getting a mentor, for how to pitch, what not to do with pitching. So that was very useful. I wouldn't necessarily say like too insightful just for me, because it's like these are ideas that I come across all the time, like with work and things I read, but like to have it in one place, it's like take a screenshot of that and just do it. It didn't feel like I was missing anything, but I'm sure some people would find that extremely insightful, especially the stuff about mentors. But I think what I really liked across the board was the idea of those kind of double-edged natures of the unfair advantages. Because like, so money, it's like you could be less hungry or ambitious if you got it. Intelligence is like you could even, if you overthink things and you're kind of super realistic, you lack that naive optimism that so many successful entrepreneurs have. Location and luck, and this applies to me as well, like things can change. Like Silicon Valley, obviously there's still a lot of money swimming around there, but it's really expensive to live there now. There's a lot of competition, whereas you have these up and coming kind of like startup hubs in Israel, Rwanda, Cape Town, South Africa, in the UK, and actually being kind of an early adopter there when rent's still low and when there's a kind of smaller pool of entrepreneurs vying for VC funds, it actually could be really in your best interest to stay where you are, to go somewhere else. So luck can be fickle, and right time, right place can change. And then the education, I guess it's things like, you know, being too much of a specialist could give you fixed thinking, or going to university could give you dependence on authority, or make you feel like what you studied is all that's useful and you don't have to get street smart. And then finally, like status, like we've mentioned, being an outsider can be extremely beneficial, or you could be disillusioned if you're disconnected from most of the world because you've grown up in a bubble. So I think that was really extremely insightful, and I love the book.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for this. And unfortunately, I've got like a workshop I'm hosting in like 2 minutes, but it's really, really nice. It's been really fun. This interview's been great, and we're going to stay in touch, man. This is something that we can continue to do and stay in touch on.
Yeah,
and,
you need somebody to build your Tinder app, your unfair advantage Tinder app. So I've got friends, I've got contacts. No, I mean,
it's a hard problem to solve. As we say in the book, the first thing you need is trust. Like, first you need trust. Secondly, you need to have the same vision. And this is like one of the biggest causes of startups failing is the founders falling out. So that's even more important than the unfair advantage. That's like a given. That's like a foundational stuff. Then you can think about the unfair advantage and stuff like that. So it's a difficult kind of human problem to solve. I think you should try and take it, because difficult problems are great, because then that's the ones that are going to do well. But man, this sounds great, and it's been really fun, and I loved your ideas. So